This was a story beyond BUDS. It's during SQT, SEAL Qualification Training. So BUDS, you learn basically zero modern tactics. It's just can you learn new skills, and can you learn the fundamentals of combat that you do a little bit of during the third phase. Everything in BUDS is basically Vietnam era stuff, and it's really
Mhm.
not too applicable in the modern day. So after you finish BUDS, you go on to SEAL qualification training, and that's actually where you earn your trident. You don't get your trident after BUDS. And one of the evolution where you're going through these mock operations, we didn't know it at the time, but the evolution was called the go no go criteria. So when you're doing a mission, one of the areas in there is go no go criteria, meaning if any of these are not met, or if some of these things aren't available that you thought would be, you're going to cancel the mission. It's meant to take the emotional decision out of it. Like these things, for example, if we lose air assets overhead, we're canceling the mission because we no longer have support if we get into a firefight. We didn't know that they were working on that with us. And so we're going through the normal mission planning stuff, and we have our go no go criteria. And then they just start injecting little things like, hey, you lost your QRF, your quick response force. All right, noted. Still go forward. We lost these assets. Intel has changed on this little thing. And they keep injecting these changes into the mission, waiting to see when you'll actually cancel the mission, waiting to see if you recognize that you're no longer on the advantage, that you're actually becoming much more vulnerable to the environment. Some groups will go the whole time, and then they'll have to do a massive debrief after, like, hey, you said your go no go criteria was this. You lost it at this point. Why did you keep going? And some classes recognize right away that the situation's changed, and so they cancel. But you're at the time, you've just been constantly doing op after op after op after op. And so you're just in that mindset of, oh, we just push through it. We just keep going. And so it's a huge shift in mindset that they're trying to drive into you, that even though you're this badass fighting force that is world renowned and you have all these skills and all these assets and you have all this training, there hits a point where you need to recognize that you're not, first off, you don't ever want to get into a fair fight. That's rule number one of the military. If it's a fair fight, it's a losing fight. You always want to have the advantage. And so if you're going into something where you've lost the advantage, you need to seriously reconsider, is this mission worth the extra risk that you've just taken on? That right there is a prime example of them forcing failure on you. That they want to see that you can recognize you're in a losing position and reassess.
How were you at this? Were you like, I'm going all the way? Were you, at some point you canceled it?
We started the op, and we were doing our foot movement in, and we again kept getting little injections. They started saying, hey, chatter, we're hearing enemy chatter doing this. We lost this air asset. And at some point, I wasn't the platoon leader on this one, so I didn't have the say. But there's talk amongst us of, hey, we don't have these things anymore. Should we keep going? And we finally did call it partway through. Ideally, we wouldn't have even started the up. We got a C plus. Wasn't terrible, wasn't great. But it's one of those, it was a huge learning experience for us. We're like, oh, we don't need to just put our head down and go through the wall, kind of like what we talked about, or with the naming of our podcast, Harder Not Smarter. There's times where you put your head down, you go through that brick wall. And then there's times where you need to reassess what you're doing and see if what you're doing is the best choice.